She sat near the edge of the spaceport gates, knees pulled to her chest, her skin gray with dust, her eyes tired but alert. Every day, thousands of people passed her. Traders, aliens, tourists, officials. But no one stopped. No one even looked. To them, she was invisible, a piece of trash on the side of the walkway. Her clothes were torn, her face hidden behind tangled strands of silver-blue hair. She looked like just another homeless drifter, too common to care about. But deep inside, her coat close to her chest, she held a small metal pendant. It was old, rusted, and cracked, but it pulsed faintly with a blue light every time someone passed too close. She didn't know why it did that. Or maybe she did, but had forgotten. Her name was Zuri. At least that's what she remembered. The rest of her memories were like broken glass. Shards of fire, stars, screams, and a voice calling her name in a language she no longer understood. She hadn't eaten in days. Her stomach growled, but her mind was quieter now. Empty, like it had accepted this life of silence, until that one moment changed everything. A tall figure stopped in front of her. Black boots, heavy steps. She looked up slowly. It wasn't an alien. It was a human, a male. Dark jacket, travel bag over one shoulder, a calm face that didn't look away when he saw her. That was new. Most people pretended she didn't exist, but not him. He crouched down. "You okay?" he asked. His voice was low, gentle. She blinked. No one had spoken to her in days. Her throat was dry. She couldn't answer. He didn't leave. Instead, he reached into his bag and pulled out a sealed food pack. He placed it beside her. "It's clean. You can eat it, no strings." She stared at him, unsure. Was it a trick? A test? Slowly, she reached out and took the pack. Her hands were shaking. The moment her fingers touched the food, the pendant under her coat pulsed harder. A small shock ran through her hand. She flinched. The man noticed. "You okay?" he asked again. "I think so," she whispered. Her voice sounded small, unused. Then, just for a second, every light in the spaceport flickered. Security scanners beeped. Screens glitched. Cameras froze. 3 seconds later, everything returned to normal. People looked around, confused. Tech officers tapped their screens, trying to figure out what went wrong. No one guessed it had anything to do with the hungry girl and the human kneeling beside her. Far above the planet, a satellite turned its focus toward the spaceport. In a dark control room on a distant space station, a red light blinked for the first time in centuries. A machine opened its eye. It spoke a single word. Found. The human didn't know any of this. He just watched her eat slowly, carefully, like someone who wasn't sure if they deserved food. "My name's James," he said. "I'm heading back to Earth. But I've got a room here for the night. If you want, you can rest there. Just for one night. You look like you need it." Zuri didn't answer right away. Trust was dangerous. But something about his voice felt real, warm. And even though she didn't know why, she nodded. He stood up, offered his hand. She hesitated, then took it. And the moment she did, the pendant glowed bright for half a second. So quick, no one else noticed. But above the galaxy, something ancient did. Old programs woke up. Hidden signals sent themselves across forgotten frequencies. The universe shifted a little. And all because one human stopped and helped the girl everyone ignored. Zuri didn't know who she really was. James didn't know what she was carrying. But from that moment on, nothing in the galaxy would be the same. Zuri sat quietly on the edge of the bed in the small guest room James had paid for. It wasn't fancy, just a corner in a cheap motel near the docking station. But to her, it felt like a castle. The bed was soft, the room was warm, and for the first time in a long time, no one was shouting at her or pushing her away. James was in the other room giving her space. He had given her a towel, a fresh set of clothes, and something called music. She didn't understand it at first. The sound came from a small speaker James carried. Gentle, strange notes filled the air. Calm, deep, and old. As she listened, her hands trembled. She had heard it before, somewhere far away, somewhere lost in her broken memory. She stood in the middle of the room, eyes closed, breathing slowly. The music pulled at something inside her chest, a feeling, a memory, a place. She whispered more to herself than anyone else, "I know this." James, who had just stepped into the room, froze. "What did you say?" "I know this music," she said again, louder. "It's old." James raised an eyebrow. "This? It's a really old Earth song, from centuries ago. It's just something I play to relax." Zuri sat back down, confused. She didn't remember her parents, didn't remember where she came from, but somehow she knew this song. The melody, the feeling, even the words. She began to hum softly, matching the tune without missing a beat. James watched in silence. Something about her was different. She didn't act like the usual aliens he met on his travels. She was too familiar, too human. But her skin was pale gray, her eyes silver. Her hair almost glowing blue. She couldn't be from Earth. Could she? Later that night, James ran a quiet search on his datapad. He checked through the common alien species. Nothing matched her exactly. He even scanned the background of her, pendant using a low-frequency scanner. It looked ancient, older than any current tech. The results confused him. Unknown origin, it said. That wasn't common. In the corner, Zuri had fallen asleep. Her breathing was slow, but her face was tight, like she was fighting something inside her mind. James watched her carefully. He didn't know why he was just a transport pilot. He'd seen 100 spaceports, 1,000 strangers. But something about this girl felt important. Not just sad, not just lost, but connected. Connected to something bigger. While she slept, Zuri began to dream. Fires burned. Metal cities crumbled. Strange beings screamed in fear. And above it all, she saw herself standing in the center of a storm, holding a bright blue light in her hand. A voice echoed around her. "You were not supposed to survive. You were the key, the last memory." She gasped and woke up. Her pendant was glowing softly again. Her hands were shaking. She looked around the room. It was safe, quiet. James was still asleep on the couch, but she knew something had changed. Something inside her had started to unlock. The next morning, James offered her breakfast. She didn't eat much, but she asked questions, small ones. "Do humans remember their past?" He laughed softly. "Some of it, most people don't care anymore. We're too busy looking forward." Zuri looked down. What if the past was dangerous? James shrugged. Then maybe someone buried it for a reason. She didn't answer. She just looked at the pendant again. The more time she spent near James, the warmer it felt, as if the pendant remembered him too. In a nearby system, a satellite tracked Zuri's faint energy signal. A council ship picked it up. Deep in a secure room, an alien commander stared at the screen. "She's alive." "Impossible," someone whispered. "Activate the Watchers. Earth doesn't know what it's hiding." Back on the planet, Zuri stared out the window, her fingers wrapped around her pendant. She didn't know what was coming, but something was watching, something old, and this time it remembered her. And that made her dangerous. James thought it would be a simple thing. Zuri looked weak, pale, and too quiet. He figured a basic health check wouldn't hurt. Maybe it would give her some peace, maybe even help her remember something. They visited a small clinic in the lower district of the city. Nothing fancy, just quiet and cheap. The nurse was friendly, didn't ask too many questions. James just said Zuri had lost her ID and needed a basic medical scan. Zuri sat still as they drew a small sample of her blood. She didn't flinch. She only watched the glowing red liquid fill the vial, her silver eyes locked on the tube as if something inside her already knew what would come next. The nurse smiled, placed the sample into the machine and said, "Results in 5 minutes." But the machine didn't take 5 minutes. It beeped loudly after just one. The screen blinked, then flickered, then turned black. "What the?" the nurse said, confused. She tapped the screen. "Nothing." In the back room, the data center lit up. Alarms flashed silently, alerts not made for normal humans. A hidden subroutine inside the system activated. A message was sent, encrypted, urgent, and marked. Unknown DNA detected. Earth sector. Back in the exam room, the nurse returned with a frown. That's odd. The machine's acting up. I'll try again manually. James felt his stomach tighten. Zuri looked down, holding her pendant tightly. What's wrong? James asked quietly. Zuri shook her head. They'll know now, she said. They always do. Who? James asked, but she didn't reply. The second test was done on a backup system. This time, the screen lit up fully. The nurse looked at the results and froze. She stared for a long time. Her hands shook slightly. James stepped closer. What is it? The nurse turned pale. According to this, she's human, but also not. James frowned. What do you mean? There's human DNA in her blood, but the structure is off. It's older, mixed with something I've never seen before, and parts of her blood. It's like the body was designed, not born. Zuri stood slowly. We have to go, she said. Now. James nodded. They left fast. Too fast. Someone noticed. By the time they reached the streets, someone was already following. A tall figure, in dark armor, no face, no voice, just steady steps behind them. James grabbed Zuri's hand. Run! They weaved through the crowded streets, passing vendors and transport bikes. Zuri was fast, even faster than James expected. She knew the alleys. Her feet moved like they remembered every path. Behind them, the armored figure didn't run. It didn't need to. It just followed. Silent. Waiting. They reached James's small ship just as the spaceport announced a security lockdown. James cursed. Under his breath, activated the override and got them aboard. Zuri leaned against the wall, breathing hard. They found me. James stared at her. Who are they? Zuri looked up. The ones who erased the past. They don't want it to return. And I'm a piece of it. James ran a deep scan from his ship's console. He accessed the blood test data the clinic had secretly uploaded to the cloud before the system shut down. What he saw made no sense. The DNA wasn't just old, it was ancient. Older than any known human sample. Parts of it matched human records from Earth's forgotten history, thousands of years ago. But the other parts, they weren't in any database. Zuri's blood was a message, a puzzle, a warning on a far moon, in a dark command chamber. High-ranking members of the Galactic Council stared at the alert screen. She has awakened. A cold voice replied, Send the hunters. Earth must not know. Back in orbit, ships began to move. Silent, watching, waiting. James sat beside Zuri. You're not just some random girl, are you? Zuri looked down at her glowing pendant. I don't remember everything, but I think I was made to protect something powerful. James looked at her, serious now. Then we'd better figure out what it is before they do. Zuri nodded slowly. For the first time, she felt like she wasn't running alone. But she also knew this was just the beginning. The news came quietly at first. A few ships seen, hovering near Earth's outer orbit. No names, no signals, no communication. Just shadows against the stars. The media called them ghost ships. Officials told the public not to worry. But in secret, Earth's governments were afraid. Those ships didn't belong to any known alliance. And they weren't moving. They were watching. Inside James's small ship, hidden in a landing bay outside the city, Zuri sat by the window. Her pendant had been glowing faintly for hours. She didn't speak much anymore. Her dreams were getting worse. Flashes of war, dying stars, and machines too big to understand. She knew the ships above weren't just curious. They were waiting. Waiting for someone to find her. James returned with supplies, his face tense. Security's tight. People are nervous, but they don't know what's really going on. Zuri looked at him. They will soon. That night, a signal broke through. Earth's defenses. A voice, cold and sharp, echoed across all major channels. Surrender the girl, or be treated as enemies of the Galactic Council. Panic spread fast. Who was the girl? What had Earth done? Government leaders met in secret. Military ships went on high alert. No one had answers. But James and Zuri knew. They mean me, Zuri said softly. They don't remember everything, but they remember enough to fear me. James stared at her. Why? What are you? Zuri stood slowly, touching the pendant. I don't know the full truth yet, but I was part of something, before history was erased, before the Council rewrote the galaxy. They think I'm a weapon. James frowned. Are you? Zuri didn't answer. Later, as they tried to plan their next move, bounty hunters came, fast and silent. Their ship had been marked, traced through the clinic scan days ago. 3 figures in black armor stormed the bay. James fought back hard, his military training kicking in. He took down one, stunned another, but the third grabbed Zuri, slammed her against the wall. Her pendant flared with blue fire. The hunter screamed, dropped her, and fell back. Smoke rose from his chest. Zuri didn't even touch him. The pendant had acted on its own. They ran again. This time, James took them to an old safe house he used during his smuggling days, hidden beneath an abandoned mining station. Zuri sat in the dark, breathing hard. They don't care who gets hurt. They just want to stop me before I remember everything. James handed her a water bottle. Then we need to find out what they erased, what secret they buried. Zuri looked into the shadows. I keep seeing, place in my dreams. A ruin with machines and symbols I don't understand, but I feel called. James nodded. Then we go there. Above them, more council ships arrived. Silent, black, ready. They didn't know why they feared the girl. They didn't know who she really was. But something in the deep parts of their systems, in codes older than they remembered, told them one thing. She must not awaken the vault. And yet, Zuri had already begun to remember. James used old clearance codes. Half of them expired, but still good enough to fool low-level scanners. His ship, the Ember Wake, slipped through the outer atmosphere just as the council ships moved into closer orbit. Their eyes were still on. Earth still searching, but Zuri and James were already gone. They were heading toward the edge of known space, toward a dead zone no ship dared visit, the place from Zuri's dreams. She sat quietly in the co-pilot seat, staring ahead. Her pendant pulsed slowly, almost like it was counting down. James had never seen her this focused. She didn't eat, didn't sleep, only whispered things under her breath, words in a language James didn't recognize. Maybe no one alive did. After several jumps through hidden lanes, they reached it. A dark, cold system with a dying sun. The planet they landed on had no name. On old maps, it was listed only as Sector 0 Black Vault, a forbidden zone. As the ship touched down, the silence hit them hard. No birds, no wind, no signals. Zuri stepped out first. The air was thin but breathable. The ground was black stone. And in the distance stood massive ruins, towers broken by time, metal walls covered in strange symbols. It looked like a graveyard of machines. I've been here, Zuri whispered. In my dreams, in my past. James followed, scanning the area with his handheld device. There's energy here, deep underground. Massive power readings. It's like the planet itself is alive. They moved through the ruins. Strange murals covered the walls, images of humans and non-humans standing together before a war. One symbol repeated over and over, a star inside, a circle wrapped in chains. Zuri touched the wall and the stone moved. A hidden door slid open, revealing a long staircase leading deep into the ground. Lights flickered on one by one as they walked. The pendant around her neck glowed brighter with every step. Her memories came in fragments. I was made here, she said quietly. Not born. I was created as a failsafe. James looked at her. For what? They reached the bottom. Before them stood a massive vault door, ancient and covered in rust, but still sealed. In its center, the same symbol, the chained star. Zuri stepped forward. The pendant in her hand pulled toward the U-lock like a magnet. Suddenly, her eyes glowed bright silver. The pendant lit up. A voice echoed from the walls. Not from a speaker, but from the structure itself. Key recognized. Memory core active. Initiating protocol. Project Echo Star. James stepped back in shock. What the hell is Project Echo? Star? Zuri dropped to her knees, clutching her head. Images flooded her mind, planets burning, fleets falling, AIs screaming in silence, and a voice saying, if we fall, let her remember. Let her wake. Let her choose. The vault door began to open with a deep rumble. Far above the planet, council ships caught the energy spike. Alarms screamed. The vault is opening. She found it. Back on the planet, Zuri stood as the vault fully opened. Inside was not a weapon, not fleet, but something stranger. A chair, and behind it rows of sleeping figures, humans, but not like any living today. Preserved. Waiting. Zuri turned to James. Her voice shook. I wasn't just made to protect something. I was made to decide if it should ever be awakened. And now the choice was hers. James stared into the vault, heart pounding. Rows of silent, sleeping figures stood in strange glass pods. Men, women, even children. Their features looked human, but enhanced. Their skin shimmered faintly. Their bodies looked stronger, ageless, untouched by time. Zuri walked among them slowly, as if she recognized every face. These aren't clones, she whispered. They're the originals, the ones who came before the council. The first Earthborn. James looked around. Why are they here? Why were they hidden? Zuri placed a hand on one of the pods. Her pendant glowed, and suddenly the pod screen lit up, showing names, dates, battle logs, and something called the Collapse Protocol. Zuri closed her eyes. They were warriors, scientists, leaders, Earth's finest. When the war against the machines broke everything, they chose to hide instead of die. They created me to guard the vault, to decide if humanity ever deserved to rise again. James took a step back. Wait, what war? Humanity's still here. We're everywhere. Colonies, fleets. Zuri shook her head. Not the real humanity. The council erased them, replaced history with a lie. What you call humanity now, it's a broken copy. She turned to face James, her silver eyes glowing faintly. They wiped Earth's past to control the future. Suddenly, alarms echoed through the ruins. Red lights flashed above. A sharp voice crackled from James's communicator. Zuri, this is Commander Dren of the Galactic Council. Step away from the vault. Surrender now, and we will spare the human. James raised his gun. They found us. Zuri looked calm. Her pendant floated slightly above her chest, spinning slowly. I knew they would. Council dropships roared. Through the sky outside, engines howling like thunder. Troops in black armor landed at the ruin's edge. Drones scanned the area. One found James's ship and exploded it with a single plasma bolt. James flinched. That was our ride! No, Zuri said. That was their mistake. She stepped toward the center of the vault, raised her hand, and spoke a single word in the ancient tongue. The pendant flashed, and the vault's power surged. Lights lit up along the walls. Machines hummed to life. The first pod opened. The man inside had golden eyes and a scar across his temple. He took a breath, looked at Zuri, and said, You woke us? Zuri nodded. The council is here. They came to erase what you protected. The man stepped out, stretching like a soldier returning from a long sleep. Then we do what we were born to do. Outside, the first wave of council troops entered the ruins and met resistance they did not expect. From the vault's walls, ancient defense systems activated. Turrets, drones, shields made of pure energy. The council soldiers were skilled, but they weren't ready for technology thousands of years ahead of theirs. Inside the vault, more pods opened. Zuri stood between two worlds, James beside her, the originals behind her, and war waiting outside. James looked at her. What now? Zuri's voice was clear. Now we reveal the truth, not just to the council, She looked toward the stars, but to the galaxy, because this was no longer just about survival. This was about awakening everything they tried to bury, and humanity was no longer sleeping. The sky above the ruined planet burned with fire and light. Council warships rained plasma down on the surface, shaking the ground, turning stone into glass. But the vault's shield held, ancient tech powered by the planet itself, alive and angry. Inside, more originals woke from their sleep. Men and women built for war, knowledge, and survival. They did not panic. They remembered everything. Zuri stood at the center of it all, glowing like a star, her pendant fully awakened, no longer just a key, but a link to the planet's forgotten mind. James moved beside her, his rifle ready. There's no turning. Back now. There never was, she said softly. Then she lifted her hand, and the sky answered. Massive energy surged through the ruins, firing beams into orbit. Council ships cracked under the assault, some fleeing, others trying to regroup. But it was too late. The vault was awake, and so were its guardians. On Earth, every screen flickered. Every comms tower lit up. Civilian stations, military channels, even private networks were hijacked. A symbol appeared across the galaxy, the chained star breaking free, followed by a voice, Zuri's voice, to every world under the galactic. Council, you've been lied to. The truth was buried, your history rewritten, your identity stolen. Images followed of the Council destroying records, erasing ancient Earth data, hiding vaults, silencing those who remembered. But we remember. And we are no longer sleeping, the galaxy froze. On far-off planets, people whispered. On warships, captains hesitated. On Council worlds, alarms rang, not just in fear of Zuri, but in fear of what she had made others see. The lie had cracked. Back on the Vault planet, Council reinforcements arrived. More troops, more machines, faster and stronger. They launched a full assault, determined to bury the Vault again, but they were too late. The originals had weapons the Council had never seen, soundless rifles, gravity bombs, armor that shimmered between light and shadow. Zuri led them not as a soldier, but as a symbol. James watched as she moved through the battlefield, guiding others, protecting civilians, and striking with precision. She wasn't a weapon. She was the choice Earth had hidden long ago. Then the Council's flagship descended. Commander Dren himself came, armored in silver and shadow, flanked by elite guards. You were meant to sleep forever, he said, staring at Zuri. I was meant to wake when truth was needed most, she replied. They fought, not just with strength, but with will. Dren had power, but Zuri had something older, something deeper. She wasn't alone. At the peak of the battle, her pendant exploded in light. Time seemed to stop. Memories flooded the air, everyone's memories. James saw flashes of Earth before the Council, before the lies. The galaxy saw cities in the clouds, oceans filled with skyships, and people united, not ruled. When the light faded, Dren was gone, and the Council was broken. Ships fled. Troops surrendered. Across the galaxy, rebellions sparked. Earth was no longer a forgotten world. It became the center of a storm. Later, as James sat beside a fire near the vault's entrance, he looked at Zuri. So, what now? Zuri smiled, tired but calm. Now we rebuild. Now we teach the galaxy what it means to be truly human. He nodded, and somewhere, far across the stars, others who had hidden began to rise too. Because when one truth wakes up, others follow, and this time, they would not be ignored.